This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. We welcome your contributions. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Senator Mutinda, coming to you. You have itemized, that is the Kenya Kwanza coalition or alliance. One of the agenda for you, the ruling alliance, is the creation of the office of the official opposition leader. Why do you think that will address Kenya's governance problem?
Let me say that, one, from the starting point of looking at how people voted in 2022, fairly speaking, there was a difference of about over 200,000 votes. And yes, we agree that the opposition leader, Honorable Raila, has also his supporters. Equally a very big number in this nation. As much as we won, but he had a good share of his supporters. And then you look at it from the perspective of fairly he's a leader because he has his followers. And the best then you can do, because he's also walked the same journey of the campaign, and he had his people who had hopes with him, but of course did not succeed. Then as a government, we fairly say, he's a leader, let him be given an office, let him be facilitated, but the key goal being the element of the accountability, being a counter check with what the government is doing and all that. So it is fair in that particular perspective as a leader, because equally he is a leader, he controls some numbers, and it will be fair for him to be well settled, because he has a good a flock that follows him. So that is the perspective, and it is fair. And remember, this discussion of office of the president is not new. It's something that the president, had foreseen and had brought that earlier discussion, because it is not only currently for Raila, but for future. We'll still have other leaders of opposition for future, and it would be fair that they are well settled. So it is in that particular narrative, and that's why we welcome it.
But is it, I mean, you sound like Senator Mutinda,
yes,
playing the man and not the ball. I mean, looking at it from a posterity perspective, I mean, we have the minority side in the National Assembly, the likes who are led by the Ugunja lawmaker, and also part of the team is Robert Mbui here. And then what's the point? Are you targeting Raila the man, or you want to create the office for posterity purposes? Because the minority side is basically doing what it ought to do. What is it that Odinga will achieve by being president in parliament that the Ugunja lawmaker wouldn't achieve, Opiah Wandayi?
That's why I'm putting it from perspective of him being a presidential candidate previously and having had a flock. It will be fair, and that's why we, as Kenya Kwanza, we welcome it from that understandability. It will be fair from that perspective. Yes, as members of parliament, we have our roles that we are supposed to undertake. And looking at where we are on the second stage or the second phase of these particular talks that are being, of course, instigated and brought about by the leader of the opposition, let me call him so, because it is what he's bringing on table, and then we say, let us have these particular discussions. But as much as we want to have these particular discussions, allow us as Kenya Kwanza to also be able to state in terms of our scorecards, so that even the opposition, when they are coming on table, they be fair. What do they want to bring on table? Because for us, in our manifesto, what we promised Kenyans, we have a scorecard as we speak. Within less than 1 year, we have what we can be able to showcase. Case example is on the agricultural sector. We've been able to have fertilizer starting at 3,500. As we speak today, which was one of our promises, is that it is retailing at 2,500. It is a step we've been able to move. And we are looking forward for a bumper harvest very, very soon. We thank God for the previous rains. At the same time, we've had issues like the teachers issue that I'm happy my brother was trying to touch, and we are at 55,000. We started with a batch of 20,000 teachers. Now we are at 35,000. That is another score that we've done. National feeding program. We've put that budget in the Ministry of Education. We are moving. Those are things that we promised. The other big promise that we had done to Kenyans is the Hustler Fund. And how did we get to this point, Ayub? To be very honest, during our campaign, as we connected with the people, we went to the ground, asked our people, what are the issues, what are the challenges? so that we work together, the hustlers. And we got to have a feel that and get the feedback that there was a very big need in terms of the economic factor for Mama Mboga and the hustler. And then we promised on the hustler fund. As we speak, there has been quite a big chunk of borrowing, over 80 million, and still borrowing and repayment has been done. And it is ongoing. These are some of our achievements. So ICT digitalization. I had the CS yesterday was on air and was speaking and talked about all the hubs that they are putting in place. We have been able to move. Yes, I agree, Ayub. As a Kenyan, the cost of living has gone high. It is high. Then, at the moment, when opposition have been coming up and throwing stones and putting sufrias on their head, I've said and asked very genuinely, what strategy are you bringing on table? What paper are you bringing and say, for us, for product X to cost X amount, then we have to look at the cost of production. What are you bringing on table and saying, how do we reduce this cost of production so that even the manufacturer can be able to do their costing and come with a better fair price? Because when this unga is at this particular price, and remember, we are coming from a point of, what do you call it, a handshake, whereby unga was retailing at over 250, 240. And right now it's around 170, 180. We are there. We are making steps. We might not be where we want to be, but we have made steps. And then we ask, when the opposition have put these concerns that they have put, that they are bringing on table, my question is, what is your offer? What are you bringing so that you can be able to produce and say, this formula is workable, this formula is not workable? Another thing, very key, remember for us, we have experts and economic experts. The beauty of it, they sit in State House. Why? Because there's a continuous update, continuous communication in regards to the matters economy, led by none other than Dr. Ndi. Remember, Dr. Ndi used to be on the other side. Mm-hmm. And we focused and we already have a team, an economic team. Then I ask, how comes in this team that has been put in place, and I respect leaders, led, of course, by His Excellency Honorable Kalonzo, no problem, but how comes, in my expectation as a leader, I expected to see an economist, you know, somebody who is very averse on matters economies, who then can be able to advise. The first agenda being, yes, the cost of living. Okay. But how are they coming with that cost of living? It is a political cost of living. It's not a factual cost of living, whereby we are going to look at numbers. Well, then, the other day I asked, you said they ought to be accompanied by an economist. Yes. That you knew about their agenda. Number one is the cost of living. Then who is the, you know they're coming to the talks and that will be their number one agenda. Yes. Who is the economist on your end who will counter that offer? Exactly, good question. We have economists in State House. As we are said, we don't have to have them in the team because we have our plans in place. But there's a team that will come to the talks. Sorry? But there is a team that will come to the talks. Yes, there's a team that is coming to the talks. As we are set, our people are set, because we have experts who are currently sitting in place and who already have the plan. So if they are bringing, what I'm saying is that they would, because ours is ready. Ours is what we have and what we're executing. What I'm saying is that in that, and it's good that these talks which shall be open, we are saying, let us see them coming with a counter offer that is reading and saying, these are the strategies that we are saying. We are saying the KPLC, you know, cost, can it be this? Can we work it like this? And things like that, you know, facts on table. And they talked about the tax issue, Ayub. And you know very well, at least I'm the Vice Chair of Finance, and I'm dealing with matters finance and budget. And you know very well where we are coming from. We are coming from where the debt has been very high. One of our main focuses as Kenya Kwanza is to reduce this debt, because then it limits our borrowing. It puts us in terms of credibility, it's shaken, and we focused on that. So we have to increase the tax base to be able to focus on that. We'll talk about that in detail. Honorable Mbu, you had a point. I'm sure you're not you're nodding your head.
You know, I'm very amused at Senator's contribution. You know. And just reminds me of the kind of promises that Kenya Kwanza, you know, dished out during the campaigns, because she's continuing on and on. But I want to just correct her and tell her, we are not in office, so we cannot implement policy. We can only correct the policies that are being propagated by this team. And on the issue of the economic advisor, I want to tell you that basic economics, because I've heard the Kenya Kwanza talk about this issue of subsidy that we had implemented when people are suffering during COVID time, and tell you that when it comes to issues of consumption and production, fuel is actually one of those things that you use for production, is not for consumption. And anything you do with fuel affects the economy. And so I don't know what economic advisors tell you that you can actually increase the cost of fuel and then expect the cost of living to come down. That basically is not acceptable. And then please, we have to also stop the double speak, because if you look at what Kenya Kwanza have brought on the table, these are the things that were proposed under the Building Bridges initiative, which Kenya Kwanza opposed in the last regime. Kenya Kwanza were flat out against some of these proposals. Then the first thing they do when we have an opportunity, a constitutional moment, they bring the same proposals that they were rejecting before. We have to move beyond this thing of double speak. But then I was surprised, Ayub, when I listened to the Speaker of the Senate, where the Senator Mutinda sits, and he stood up in a function where the president was there, the deputy speaker of the National Assembly, and other leaders, and he castigated the proposed, issues raised by Kenya Kwanza in these sittings. He actually said that he does not understand why Kenyans would go and taxpayers' money would be spent to discuss things that are already on the floor of the House. The issue of the leader of official opposition, the issue of the prime cabinet secretary, the issue of, two-third gender rule, the issue of entrenching CDF into the constitution. All those are the things that he said they are already, in Parliament. And he didn't understand how we can be spending taxpayers' money to discuss them. And I agree with him. What he didn't know is that it is Kenya Kwanza that is bringing those things on the table. We are dealing with things to do with Kenyans. We are dealing with things to do with our constituents, our voters. But they are dealing with things to do with the offices. They've always said, oh, we don't want to discuss positions. We don't want to discuss offices. We don't care who holds what office. But that's exactly what they're bringing on the table. I wish we could all focus. And my belief, Ayub, is that this thing of the talks started off in a very bad footing. But I do believe at the end of the day that it is possible to salvage it.
Okay.
The biggest problem we have is the ego of politicians. Because you had, when my party leader proposed that we have a meeting, the first meeting to be held yesterday.
On Monday, yeah.
On Monday. And he gave a time, and, and there was enough time for that to be done. Quickly, the leader from the other side now decides, no, I cannot go with the timing given. No. He refuses the time, he refuses the venue, he refuses the date. And it has to change, and he proposes his. Let me tell you, the minute we put our egos down and our pride, then we can sit as a nation and agree. Because the things that we are talking about are really weighty, and Kenyans are watching. But I also want to thank God that, in our team, yeah. The Azimio team, we have actually given 2 principles to be part of that negotiation. That shows Kenyans how seriously we are taking these talks. And when you find Kalonzo Musyoka there and Eugene Wamalwa, okay, who are party leaders seated there, we know that they can, at the table, make decisions on behalf of Azimio.
Okay.
But the other side, they cannot be able to make any decision without walking out and make a phone call so that they can get an approval.
Okay, we have no apparently the predictive skills to know what will happen next, because that will start tomorrow on Wednesday. But you have mentioned that the itemized issues by Kenya Kwanza is a reflection of what was contained in the BBI.
Yes.
The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, which you supported, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The Court of Appeal, in rejecting that and its declaration, this was the judgment by Judge Daniel Musinga, who led other judges at the Court of Appeal. He said the proposals as contained in the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill are no ordinary amendment, but a dismemberment of this Constitution. This points to Honorable Robert Mbowe, Honorable Kainan, Senator Mutinda, and Honorable Peter Opondo Kaluma, that politicians in this country often use the Kenyan public as a swinging pendulum, and when the shoe does not fit the other foot, as is the case at the moment, you seem to be opposing or supporting an issue based on your interests. I mean, why did you support what was a serious indictment by such a ruling by the Court of Appeal, and yet you knew that was not an ordinary amendment to the Constitution?
Latif, Mbowe is not a lawyer. Could I explain?
Kaluma deal with that.
Okay.
I think let's get the discussion right. We have a country. Power is transient, impermanent. That is why for those of us who have been around, we understand the dynamics of Kenyan politics very well. Luckily, we have been around.
But why is service delivery a problem?
Let me just allow me this, because I think so many statements were made, from foreign policy to the cost of living to our governance structure. I love this. I think that's why I said it's always good to recollect. First of all, we are dealing with to the best of my recollection, Raila is a seasoned, highly respected elder who enjoys a lot of support in this country, and therefore assuming him will be a big mistake. But for the first time, he's also dealing with a self-made grassroots mobilizer as the president of the Republic of Kenya. So he has got also his match. Meaning the dynamics are completely different. It's not going to be business as usual. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, I think there's need to put some of these things together and create some sort of narrative which will be acceptable to both sides. Last year, what we were implementing was the Big Four agenda. This year, what the government is implementing is the bottom-up approach, the Hustler agenda. Meaning they are reading from this. Okay, the outcome might be the same. It's tailor-made for the people, but they've decided to take two different routes. If you expect the Kenya Kwanza government, and I don't speak for them, to take the route that the last government actually was using, it will be totally unacceptable, because that is not what they campaign on. That being the case, I think a number of aspersions has been casted on our foreign policy. Kenya's foreign policy, first of all, to the best of my recollection, has always showcased a disposition towards an Afro-centric policy. And I think you need to understand our foreign policy. Once you understand that, then you will be in a position actually to internalize the other dynamics. The reason why Kenya's involvement, Kenya first of all did not anoint itself to be the lead mediator in Sudan. That came as a result of Kenya's membership of IGAD and the African Union. And meaning if the Sudanese have an issue, it's their right to say that because of this and this, they are not comfortable with this. They have done with Saudi Arabia and the US. The talks have been on in Jeddah for close to a month. Nothing meaningful came out. The talks again shifted to President Sisi in Egypt, a neighbor. They raised the issue of Egypt being a neighbor. Nothing came out. It's now Kenya. Ultimately, Sudan is a very important country to us in terms of security, in terms of economy, and therefore the well-being of the people, even in terms of being part of the African continent. So that issue of sorting out the Sudan mess is our number one priority as a country and as a citizen. So that bit and how it's going to be solved, actually, it should not be politicized. I'm sure there are other dynamics which are evolving, and we hope and pray that the issue of Sudan will be resolved. Right. That being the case, you see, and our number one agenda, foreign policy, is economic diplomacy. I'm sure you know it. From the current constitution, for the first time, we have a written foreign policy. Now come back to the politics. Discussions are about to start. They have anointed, or they have appointed their team. The other group have also appointed their team. I think the best we can do at this stage is to allow the team to meet, or the teams to meet, internalize what have been proposed. The issues that were a bit contentious of handshake, and these have already been ruled out, and give them space to come up with, and they're very reasonable people. Equally, the president, being the head of both, under the current constitution, is the head of state, head of government, head of that coalition, and the parties that coalesce around that. And therefore, they have every right. Somebody was saying, why is he wasting a lot of time in Mount Kenya? I said, Mount Kenya was actually the focal point for both groups because of his numerical strength. He climbed before us. That is why now he's there, back, implementing what he promised during that struggle to climb Mount Kenya. So why are you wondering with him? He is fulfilling his agenda, the agenda of his coalition. There's something that you raised. Under our current constitution, the opposition is clearly recognized. But what this law of the official opposition actually attempts to address is to give effect so that, you see, the current constitution is a mixture of the Westminster model and the US model. It's not 100% pure presidential system. What the law proposes is to allow the office of the official opposition so that they can also get shadow cabinet ministers, so that when the minister, the National Treasury CS, presents the government budget, the shadow CS Treasury for the alternate government will also present. That is what we are lacking. That is why the agenda is not very clear. But Honorable
Kenan, I want to get this clear. I mean, even under the old constitutional dispensation, when President Kibaki was declared the winner, ODM had a majority members of parliament in the National Assembly. And at the moment, I mean, because there is the leadership of the minority side that's led by the Ugunja lawmaker, Opiyo Wandayi, I want to understand, in terms of giving it what you said is strength, and talking about a hybrid system of a jailed Westminster and the US presidential system of style. In the UK, it's the Conservative Party that takes all. The Prime Minister names all the cabinet. What Jeremy Corbyn and company have are only shadow cabinet secretaries. Look at the appointments made by the Prime Minister in the UK. Here, in Parliament, it's not prerogative of the President even, or the executive, because it's the majority party at the National Assembly that will have the majority side, whose MPs will have the majority of the numbers. Why do you want to dilute our system of governance by this very brilliant constitution that sets the line between the government and the opposition?
Actually, I think you have not understood actually what that amendment actually is meant to achieve.
What will it achieve?
The leader of the opposition is outside.
Who is the leader of the opposition?
The head of that particular coalition that participated in the election.
What's the role of, the Ugunja lawmaker then?
He leads parliamentarians on behalf of
Ugunja.
the official opposition party.
Okay, what change? Okay, hang on. We have to get it clear.
Okay, right now, who's giving direction?
Okay,
who's giving direction?
Honorable Kenan, okay, let me, you'll have the time to respond. Let me ask the questions. Is the target getting Odinga in Parliament?
No, the target is giving effect to the role of, under our governance structure, the role of the official opposition. Because right now, who's giving direction to the official opposition? It's Honorable Raila, who's the presidential candidate.
I mean, okay.
The official, and he has no role other than being their presidential candidate.
Okay, let's get to the point of, okay, I need clear answers on this. What then is it, or are you saying that the leadership of the minority side, the minority leader, cannot achieve in Parliament?
I think
what's the point of creating the leadership?
You need to understand this.
Because you seem like playing the ball and
what is proposed in that bill is to have an office of the official opposition, which will be funded by the taxpayers, just like the political parties are being funded by the taxpayers, that will resonate well with what that particular party wants, give effect to the operations of both the letter and the spirit of what the framers of the current constitution actually had in mind when they talked of the existence of the office of the official opposition, because it's just mentioned in a sweeping statement in the current constitution, meaning that office will have funding, that office, just like the office of, the way right now you fund political parties, isn't it? It never used to be there, courtesy of the current constitution. What I think is being proposed is to give effects to that so that the office is funded, the players, the shadow ministers also get support from the government so that they can check the activities of the government in every aspect. That's what that law anticipates.
It's all about oversight, right?
Yes.
Representation, checking over the government, isn't it?
As to who will occupy that office is going to be within the party.
But we already have an occupant, isn't it? What is the point of the minority leader then?
They can decide whether that will be the person or somebody else, but that has to be given effect.
The challenge is I have a problem when politicians often focus on the personalization and not posterity.
Okay, they have every right to say no, but I think because this is for posterity, the attempt, it has to be put in the law so that it's not meant actually for the current office holders, because the dynamics change. Those who were in the opposition yesterday are the ones who are in government.
Well, you can't change the constitution can't be changed willy-nilly, as the point had pointed out.
That is why it was a proposal under the BPI.
Okay.
That is why it was a proposal under the BPI.
And the BPI was declared unconstitutional, null and void by the court.
The narratives, not every aspect of that particular...
I can read the judgment, have it.
Let me tell you. When we proposed the office of Prime Minister and official opposition in BBI, it was to restructure the whole government from the current presidential system to a parliamentary system in which the opposition leader sits in the House. What we have is a suggestion to have now a prime cabinet secretary. And by the way, there is nothing like they want to create the office of official opposition. They have just discovered they have a prime cabinet secretary who is doing nothing. They want the prime cabinet secretary to come to parliament and then look at even the departments of government, the PSS he has behind him. They are PSS for parliamentary affairs when he does not sit in parliament. So to dupe this side of ours, we are creating a position for official opposition, because they know when you create the office of official opposition, then you must have prime minister on the other side, and both have to come to parliament. Let me tell you, my brother Kenan, what the law is. When you have a presidential system, and that is what we have, parliament as a unit, as an entity, as a whole, oversights the executive arm of government. In fact, the person who should be leading our onslaught and oversight of the executive is Kimani Ichung'wah. And that is why he's majority leader of the House. He is not the official leader of government business. The side we have, and that is why we say the majority side and the minority side of parliament. But as a unit, parliament is one in oversight. What we have in our parliament today is a confusion largely by the Kenya Kwanza side, that they are in the executive arm of government. And my brother,
I think that is
okay. I'm now talking to you as a lawyer.
I'll give you time.
I'm now talking to you as a lawyer.
No,
I'm now talking to you
there
as a
has
lawyer.
been interpretation as they are lawyers. That is completely
I'll give you the time to respond.
This constitution has been in place since 2010.
Let me talk.
I'll give you the time.
Okay.
It is a presidential system in which the leader of the minority, actually there is no position in our structure of government. We have majority and minority side in parliament.
And parliament is an arm of government.
And parliament is an arm of government in charge of oversight under the constitution as a whole. And so the person leading the minority is Opiyo Wandayi. You cannot come and say we need an opposition in a framework of government where there is no opposition. What is the opposition in the United States? So that what we have is a confusion of roles, where you have, the team on Kenya Kwanza side saying, we are government, and they expect Robert Mbuyi and Kaluma to be the ones undertaking oversight. And that is the confusion we have, where you get them poaching. Let me tell you, Kenan, if you look at the United States, the House of Congress, the majority now, are the minority side, not the party forming government. But they are working very well together. Because of their confusion, this government comes in, and what do? They tell you, no, we must have numbers because we are the government side, okay? And so they go buying parties, they go poaching MPs. You see how my brother Kenan is speaking today. You don't know whether he was elected in Azimio or which side. Those are the things we need to discuss and avoid. Okay. If we are going opposition, reinstating it back to government, and there may be wisdom in it, do it wholesome. It is not a matter of creating offices. But my brother, let me answer some question you had asked about what was that?
The BBI ruling.
Yeah, the BBI ruling was to the effect largely that because we are restructuring fundamentals of the Constitution, the matter has to go to referendum. Yeah. And that is the context in which you see it. And I can tell you, Kenan, in as much as you are going to talk about Prime Cabinet Secretary, official opposition, because it is restructuring the executive of government, the executive arm, it will have to go to referendum. It cannot be done that flippant.
Honorable Kaluma, you have mentioned the role of Parliament. Senator Mutinda, I'll come to you, Honorable Kenan and Mbuyi too. And Parliament, therefore, must prioritize the needs of the Kenyan people.
Correct.
You included, because you primarily represent Homa Bay Town constituency, but as a member of Parliament of the Republic of Kenya, you also represent the needs of the other Kenyan people. I want to quote two former members of the bicameral house, Moses Kuria, our cabinet secretary. He said, we have told Kenyans this romantic story that all is well. I want to say, he said some years back, that we have lied to the Kenyan people, first of all. And the second thing is that we have failed in our oversight responsibility. Senator James Orengo, Senior Counsel, now Governor, Siaya County, he also said, I want to appeal here that sometimes we look for solutions where there are no solutions. Like when you are talking about Parliament and looking for a solution in Parliament, I think you are absolutely mistaken. Then what's the point of having you guys?
Let me tell you, and this is why we are calling for talks. We are in a situation, Kenyans, where the other arms of government are being neutered by the current regime. And not just the other arms of government, but you also have independent commissions and offices, all swallowed and struggling to stand for the people as mandated by the Constitution. Let me tell you the situation in Parliament. And I'm now a third-time leader in Parliament. But Parliament has been interfered with by the Kenya Kwanza regime, cannot execute its mandate. Look, when we did election, my brothers and sisters, the majority side was Azimio. And this is on record. There was even a letter from the registrar confirming Azimio as the majority. Then you remember the Azimio Party of the North with the 7 or so MPs swallowed. You have then Jubilee you know, struggling. You see the struggles of my brothers here now. You have ODM, you know, being raided, and people are being told if you go to State House, you'll get development, not budgeting for it in Parliament. Okay. So that they have amassed now a majority unconstitutionally in the sense that as a member of Parliament, when I'm changing my position to pervade the policy of the other formation, the Elections Act says I am deemed to have defected. Now, you have people who have been caused to defect and who act for the other side, but are not formalizing their defection, so that we have a by-election. And so Parliament is swallowed. No, let me be done. You have enough time. Okay. Don't worry, I'm on your case. Parliament is swallowed. And so long as they have the majority, you've seen the debates, even when we were debating police brutality. You know, people just walk out and disable Parliament. You want to debate an issue, they say, put the question, we want to vote and go. And so Parliament has been neutered. The judiciary is struggling. Today there is a ruling this direction, tomorrow it is on the other side. Look at what the office of the DPP did with the fight against corruption. and by the way, this is a DPP who did very well. But I remember somebody said, Kainan, that you will most instances be remembered not for your successes, but for your failures. Okay. The collapsing of corruption cases will mean the mark of failure. My friend. The IEBC. And this is why we are saying, let us talk all these issues, including IEBC, on the table. Okay. Where is EACC today? Okay. They are all swallowed.
Yes, I'll come to the DPP question and independence institutions in Kenya. Yes, Honorable Mutinda. Yes, Senator, please proceed.
Mike, let me even sound like you and ask, why are we here? Why are we here in terms of the talks? Because the discussion we are having on table this morning and what will be happening tomorrow are talks. Let us step back a bit and ask ourselves, why are we on this discussion? Yet we have a parliament, we have majority, we have minority. We are here because people and leaders have refused to accept what Kenyans went on the balloting on August 9th and made their decision. And that is why we are here. You're asking good question, and you're asking Honorable Kaluma, then if Parliament is in place, what is their role? The oversight, representation, legislation. He's saying they're dead. So you as a member of Parliament, then why are you elected? If you yourself, you're declaring yourself and say your role is dead, how is it dead? They are saying the State House has muted Parliament. Then how? How are you muted as a member of Parliament? If you do not want to execute your mandate and keep on taking us back, and I've said, we are on the second phase of all these discussions we are trying. I had my brother on the other side trying to say we have so much pride. I've discussed this. I've asked, for Christ's sake, let us get to understand that one common denominator that is in place is that we are all Kenyans. We are not going to change that fact. This is our country. We have to build it. And we are going to be in the upper front in building it and not allowing destructions. You saw what happened the last time, weeks ago, when Azimio went to the streets and did the destruction. And at times, when people are silent, when people are silent, when leaders are silent, I've given you your time, with all due respect, and we came in and said, this is not going to happen. The government is going to protect, as per the Constitution, the Mwananchi himself or herself and the property of the Mwananchi. And we did that. We stood on the ground and nothing was destroyed. We were there on the ground. So when they say pride, I ask, the President, His Excellency, William Samoei Ruto, has said clearly, the first instance, our brother, come, let us have a discussion. I remember the other time he was in Tanzania, and when all this was going around, he tweeted and said, he's that digital. He's a people's person. He's connecting. And he said, my brother, let us, sit down, have a discussion. So when you say we are chest thumping, when you say we are priding, which pride is there? And the focus is for this particular Mwananchi. And I want to say, as Mheshimiwa Kainan had stated, we need to understand His Excellency, the president that we have. This president that we have, he's a composition of what you call the firmness. And I say the word firmness of Moi that time, the firmness. And at the same time, he has an energy of Raila Amolo Odinga. So these two elements, these two personalities combined are very unique are very special in way he does things. Very, very special. So what is happening is that he's able to connect with the people and he's able to connect with the leaders. That is why he's able to say, come, let us have a discussion. But what is key and where our brothers from the opposition Azimio, and they normally have very good leaders. They normally have good leaders in general. But there is this element of their own leader. Apparently, their leader, he doesn't succeed. We've seen this from 2007, 2017, 2022. We are still here. From the time I've been schooling, I've just been seeing this trend. We are still here discussing none other than Raila Amolo Odinga. Who has put us on this discussion? Ayub, let me say. Who has put us on this discussion is none other than Raila. Why can't he accept that this is it? And let his leaders, they are here. The minority are here. And I'm happy he has given them. And I'm happy Mheshimiwa, the minority leader, National Assembly, Opio, is in the talks. As equally as Ichungo is in the talks. I've heard my friend saying, oh, you know, our leaders that are there, they have to get out, make phone calls, and then come back. Is that not demeaning leaders?
Thank you.
Is that not demeaning leaders, for Christ's sake?
Thanks.
If you do, you're not, if you're not confident with the leaders, then right now as we speak, within 24 hours, then stop the discussion.
Okay, thank you. I'll come to you, Honorable Mbo. Yes, Honorable Kenan, you had a point?
Yes.
And factually, Raila did not contest in 2002.
Sorry, in 2007, sorry.
I think let's deal with facts.
Sorry.
Let's deal with facts. Honorable Kaluma is a lawyer and is also a product of one of aristocratic families, and I hope Honorable Raila will allow you to take over ODM at certain stage. That's with a light touch. But reality, let me first of all, he has alluded to the changes actually in Parliament. Let me say this. Under the current constitution, under the current statutes, coalition, pre-election coalition, post-election coalition actually allowed. We as Jubilee have decided to invoke the exit clause. We have given notice, and therefore, we are no longer part of Azimio.
You're not part of the coalition political party.
We have given exit. Of course, theoretically, the people we have been around, once we have given that exit notice, we are no longer. At the best of the 34 members of Parliament, we are no longer part of Azimio. Of course, the time will come when officially they're still taking us around. There are a number of issues. That being on record.
Are you going for by-elections?
Yeah. We are quitting as a coalition, as a party.
As a coalition.
Not as an individual.
No, but you're elected under Azimio.
That is a coalition. The law allows post-election, pre-election. We have given notice.
See, this is the indiscipline we are talking about.
I want you to understand the law. The same law that you described too. UDM has also applied, has also done the same. But equally, you need to understand this. What causes all this? The same thing that caused Wetangula to exit, the same thing that caused Musalia Mudavadi to exit, the same thing that caused Kingi to exit, the same. That has been part of the history of the dynamics of actually this coalition. And nobody will accept, in this broad daylight, who will accept to be mistreated? Who will accept to be demeaned? Who will accept to be colonized?
How are you being mistreated?
If I say certain things on TV, I'm sure you'll not lie. But
No,
I think
with
due respect, let's leave it, because it's now moving on. Some of the issues are in court. But what I say is, we as Jubilee, and you have had our SG talk about it, I think let that be respected. And we are doing it within the law. Secondly,
and I'll allow you to go to your second point, Honorable Kenan. I want to ask you why? Why are you no longer a party to the Azimio coalition political party?
Because of the issues that we have raised. We have written.
For example?
We have been with, you see, first of all, we are not party to the arrangement that led to the formation of that coalition. It was done by the leaders then. But I think we were duped as Jubilee. Because look at even the structure of Parliament. The structure of Parliament. Literally all the positions, we were duped actually, we were conned as Jubilee. Let me put it as our acting SG has rightly put it. We were conned. The same way Wetangula was conned, the same way Mudavadi. History repeats itself.
No, you are conned down.
Okay.
All our positions were taken by your party.
Taken away.
No, but
By your party.
You are in the most important positions.
No, please, let me speak for myself.
Yeah. You will allow me to rebut. You will allow
I will explain. All our positions. Jubilee is the second largest party in the opposition. Ideally, we ought to have got either the minority leader or the minority whip or the deputy minority leader who occupies. Our position in PSC was taken. Our position in literally, even in the committee formation. That being the case, and it's an issue for debate. In this broad daylight, we'll subscribe to broad daylight political conmanship.
Okay, now
we will not.
Okay,
Honorable Ali Roba and his party UDM have done the right thing to quit, because he will have been abused the same way these other people were also abused. That being the case, there's something my brother had said here.
Okay, you will rebut.
No.
Hang on.
This is something very important.
Finish up.
If truly you believe in the oversight of Parliament, as you have rightly alluded, which is true, because Parliament being the first arm of government, then why do you resort to mandamando? Why do you resort to inciting innocent people? Why don't you discharge your mandate as the duly elected representative of the people of Kenya and say, look, you are a member of a committee, you are a member of all political caucuses, you have been elected, you can bring private members' motion, you can bring private members' bill, you can move the house, you can do anything. Why will you do the same things that you ought to do on the floor of the house in the streets? That is the bit that we are resisting.
Okay.
Because my brother here is one of the most seasoned, sober leaders here.
Very.
He has every right to advocate for the rights, for the aspirations, for the thinking of his political party. But instead of doing it, you want to do it in the street.
My brother,
that is why the issue my brother here has raised.
Yes.
Even him, his role as the elected representative of his conscience, he has given it back to the village in the form of demonstrations. But finally, let me say
okay,
this.
But okay, I have to stop the time.
The issue of constitutional commission.
Order.
You have had, actually, you have not.
Honorable Kaluma, order, members.
The issue of constitutional commission.
I'll come to you. Please, let me now query on this, because Honorable Mbui has been waiting. I did inquire why, because you are now supporting the administration of the day. And allow me to read you this quote from Jeff Amason Kingi, the Pamoja Africa Alliance Party leader. This is the Jubilee Party, NDC, in 2022. He said in presence of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, if this formation, he said, does not sit in State House in the August elections, all this will go to waste. You are there in that meeting of the Jubilee NDC. He said, we will be exposed to tachinjwa, na unajua nani atatuchinja. He meant then Deputy President William Ruto. Na unajua nani atachinjwa wa kwanza. He meant Uhuru Kenyatta. And then a week later, he was at the current residence of then Deputy President. And you, as a Jubilee Party member, you are now supporting the government of the day. You have talked about multipartyism and the need for the opening up of this space. Where is the ideology? Where is the policy that ought to be underpinning you? Why all this zigzag political formation by all parties, including you, other members of parliament, who are elected on this party ticket, then they support others. In the next election, they still not hold that party again. And it's so problematic.
The vibrancy and the pragmatism actually in our constitution allows for formations before the election, after the election, taking into account the national...
Which provision allows after?
That is why we as Jubilee, not as Kainan, we have made a conscious decision. Somebody can run around with the souvenirs, but we as Jubilee, as current constitution, we have made a decision to exit that abusive marriage of Azimio.
Is it the ideology and the policy that drives political parties? As a seasoned politician,
it is self-interest.
No. I think you are being subjective. You need to understand this.
Yes.
You are being subjective. You need to understand this. We are following the law. We are following the due diligence. The due diligence is we are part of a coalition. We have given notice. We are exiting.
Let me add this.
As to who will support and what we'll do will be our...
Which law are you following?
Yes. Now, but let me say this.
Which section?
Political acts on coalition formation.
You know,
Ayub, I want you to get this. This thing has not started yesterday. What did Wetangula say? This divorce will be noisy, will be messy.
And we'll have casualties.
Is it 2023? The casualties are who? The presidency of my father here. Because Honorable Wetangula led the entire Western nation, in particular Bungoma, in giving over 300,000 votes to the current president. Maybe the circumstances. What did our friends get? An exchange for the office of the minority leader in the Senate.
Thank you.
Okay, now we get Mbui to talk now.
Now, thank you, thank you. You know, Ayub, the reality when you listen to us speak here. In fact, when you talk about these leaders that we mentioned, the speakers of both houses, prime cabinet secretary, a lot of the leaders, strong and serious leaders like Kainan, there's a lot of double speak. In fact, you know, the beauty is that
I must have double speak.
you know, I'm actually one of the very unlike you, my communication has been consistent. I have never changed an opinion since I was elected in 2013, up to now. Now, the reality is that the real truth is that a lot of these politicians are self-seekers. And that is why when Azimio, I said a lot of these politicians, and I've named them, I'm not one of them, I've already excused myself. And I can tell you, you can go on the internet, the things I said in these shows, the things I've said in Parliament from 2013 are consistent. If I support a cause, I will support it all the way. But the reality is that a lot of times it is self-seeking. Because what informed the decision of a few members of ODM to quickly go to the side of William Samoei Ruto? Only because Ruto occupies the office of the president. And so they believe that they're going to benefit. But let's talk about some of the facts that, that I want to allay some of the things that have been said here. Because my sister said that Raila doesn't succeed. And I want to give some facts here. In 2007-2008 election, which was highly contested, the then ECK chairman himself at one point said he's not very sure who won the election. And in fact, when I think Rigla came, there was a problem. And that is why they came up with a grand coalition government, because it wasn't very sure who won. In 2017-2018, and I want to inform her, the Supreme Court nullified the election, and we did not go back to a repeat election. So we cannot say that we keep losing elections. And right now, we have a whistleblower. Are you right now?
Okay, you will proceed. You will have the time. The Supreme Court nullified the presidential elections of 2017.
Yes.
And ordered for a fresh,
a fresh election. Yes.
Why then did you not take part?
We gave our irreducible minimums, you know that. And he said we cannot go into the same situation under the same IEBC, under the same conditions and expect, it's only a mad person who does the same thing twice and expects different results. We were not mad, we knew if we go there, we'll still go through the same problem. And so that's why we said no. And anyway, now let's talk about this current last election. We have stated that our whistleblower came and said, you people, the results were announced by Chebukati, and the Supreme Court upheld the decision. But a whistleblower said, why don't you guys get to open that server and see the contents? And I'm telling you, even the issue of the server, article, I think there's article 39. Is it 35 on access to information? Why is it so difficult? Because every Kenyan has a right to information held by government or held by another person if it affects them. Why is it so difficult for Kenyans to be told these are the contents, lay bare the contents of the server, so that we can say, okay, you seem to have won, we have accepted, let's move on.
Honorable Boy, this is my question.
Yes.
Order. Order, Peter Kaluma. Honorable Boy.
Yes.
We have given ourselves institutions that are independent. That includes the Supreme Court to settle matters in regards to presidential petition, election petition. And in its judgment, it was very clear. The opposition had sampled polling stations that were verified.
Correct.
I was present at that exercise at Forodha House, at the Supreme Court, and another which happened where the IEBC officers are at Anniversary Towers. Between the whistleblower and the ruling which was binding by the Supreme Court of the Republic of Kenya, as the opposition,
can I respond to you?
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. That is more the reason why then opening the server means we'll get the results that will be upheld by the Supreme Court.
You're not answering.
That's a direct question.
Let me respond to this question.
Whistleblowers have a right to
forget about whistleblowers.
Okay, it's straightforward.
Yes.
Let me respond to you.
Honorable Kaluma, you have the time before we sample the feedback. Very straightforward.
Yes.
The Supreme Court had ordered for a recount of the physical ballots at Forodha House at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
I was present.
Yes.
At the Anniversary Towers, another exercise was simultaneously taking on.
Correct.
And it was in the presence of Azimio lawyers, among them Paul Mwangi. At Forodha House, there was also the presence of other Azimio leaders. In the report, and the final judgment of the Supreme Court highlighted that there were no inconsistencies between what was counted at Anniversary Towers and at Forodha House, the physical ballot counting. So why then do you...
Can I respond?
Let him respond.
Let me answer you, because what I believe is this: if there was any verification, it was probably 1 or 2 or a few stations. The server contains the info from all the polling stations across the country, and it has a total at the end of it all. What is so difficult about looking at it? What is so difficult about opening it and laying it bare? Okay. In fact, let me tell you what I've always said.
Because I'm asking
you know what I've always said
as
is
a seasoned lawmaker.
Yes.
Because we are not making... Hang on. We are not making...
That if I was at Forodha, let me respond to you.
I'll come to you, Honorable Peter Kaluma. You will have the time. Honorable Mbui, the reason as to why I'm asking these persistent questions is because cumulatively you four, by the end of 2027, all members of parliament seated here will have 60 years of your presence in parliament. So the Kenyan people need answers.
Yes.
And we can't just make statements out of, I mean, no reason. And I again ask the question, in the prayers the opposition sought some polling stations that you listed and the court accepted to be recounted physically and then at the anniversary towers to be checked from the servers.
Yes.
So why do you...
The Supreme Court, my brother...
Ayub, let me just make this very simple. We took a petition to the Supreme Court, and we lost the petition, and we accepted and we moved on. Now, you put yourself in our shoes. Our whistleblower comes and tells you, why don't you just check the content so that you can allay your fears and put this matter to rest? What is so difficult about it? I'll tell you what, I've been elected now 3 times. Yeah. And every time I've always said this: if anyone was to ever challenge my victory in an election, I would tell them, let's go back. I wouldn't even want to defend the position. I would tell them, let's go back, let the people decide.
I take your note. Yes,
let me respond to you. We, in the Supreme Court determination, there is another debate going this side. And I'm helping Bui because I participated in the Supreme Court matter, though from the background. In fact, I was at Forodha briefly. The application was for scrutiny of ballot materials. The Supreme Court picked a limited number for ballot papers and returns scrutiny at Forodha. And of course, you remember the Supreme Court was proceeding on the principle that if the numbers do not alter the results, they will uphold. You remember the Raila 1 petition. We also applied for scrutiny of the servers and the electronic system. Did you remember? And an order was initially made. The day when we were to go for scrutiny, you remember the provider of the technology right and say, you will violate our intellectual property if the servers and the technology are opened. I hope this you can also remember. So it's a case of somebody selling to you a suit. Okay. Yeah, these are factual. Selling to you a suit and telling you don't use the button, it is still mine. Because you remember we purchased the technology, and that is why our election costed over 40 billion. Now, the fact of the matter, my brother, is that you need to look at Article 39 of the Constitution. It says our elections will be, 2 major words used, verifiable and accountable. The fact that we went to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court made their determination, and President Ruto is now president, is not our issue. What we are saying is that for future, we must be sure our electoral processes are accountable. And so you remember we said, we do not agree with the position and the decision made by the Supreme Court, but we will obey, we will respect it. And so that is done. What we are saying is it possible that, or could it be possible that we could be continuing elections with interferences with the servers? So what we are saying is under Article 39, if these people won, and this is not to overturn the election because that is settled by the Supreme Court, okay? If they won, what is difficult opening this server? Are our facilities accountable? That is what we, and so we are saying electoral reform, beginning with how effective and functional and credible the servers are. It's material. I mean, why this itchiness? And you know the beauty of the server, my brother, is that even if you delete it, it will show.
Okay.
What is the problem opening it for us to be sure that even in future, forget about even the past election, we are proceeding with technology which is credible. They fear because they know the serve speaks to a different result.
Let me ask, Ayub, for Christ's sake. And that's why when I started, I said, you know, where we are, it's personal interest. Mheshimiwa and Mheshimiwa, did you win? Why are you seated here? Why are you seated in parliament? Because you are elected.
We are saying
no, you are elected. The same process that people went to elections and voted for Raila and voted for William Samoei Ruto, and whoever won, the president won. You underwent, no, you under the same.
You are nominated, you don't understand.
No, you're out of order. No, you're out of order because
she never ran for election. She does not understand.
You're out of order because
defense. Okay, let her.
Because
what I'm saying, order.
Thank you. What I'm simply trying to say is that we went to, and we voted from an MCA position to a member of parliament, to senator, women rep, governor, presidential position, the whole process. And they are seated here because the process was one process that was in place. So how comes this particular position for their leader is not fair at this particular process? And hence, they want to subject us to opening of the servers for their own interest. And they keep on saying if. And then if we are not in position, if we are not in power, because we are in power as the president is in place, then why are they wanting us to sit if we are not genuinely elected? Why are they subjecting us to the discussion? Number two, I wanted to talk about a bit in terms of Bomas of Kenya. I was in Bomas of Kenya when the process of verification was in place. We slept there, you know, 72 hours doing the process. They were there confirming, literally checking everything genuinely. That was not satisfactory. They still had an opportunity and they went to go. They were not prepared of losing actually because they were so confident. And so we had put our everything in place. We went there and verified everything. So number three.
Why not open
there are no server. His President William Samoei Ruto does not have a key in State House that opens servers.
It is IBC.
This is IBC issues that should be addressed to IBC. But on top of that, us as Kenya Kwanza, in our 5 discussions,
agenda,
we've agreed agenda. We've agreed on the discussion of the IBC.
Thank you. And
we are that fair. We've agreed.
And we talked about that. We need a feedback. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. The first one comes from Okelo Mwalimu. He says, going by the public pronouncements by KK and Azimio politicians, it's almost guaranteed that the proposed talks would stall within a week of commencement. Whoever is expecting a president on his first term to upset his support base by making peace with the opposition is a daydreamer. And Kenya Minde says, I haven't seen any issues that concerns Mwananchi in the KK list. Are discussions on office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary or the office of the opposition leader even necessary in the talks? Kipto Ruto says, inclusivity should take center stage in the bipartisan discussions between the government and the opposition. Inclusivity in government is not just a policy, it's a principle that ensures every citizen's perspective is valued and represented. Bobo Tiono Wino says politicians always talk the opposite way. The things you see them denying publicly are things that they are actually after, but not interests of the electorates like high cost of living, but pushing for their own agenda. And Babu Michelle K says, I don't think the bipartisan committee phase 2 will yield the needed results that is intended to move the country forward, going by the necessary conditions set by the majority leader, Mr. Ishungwa. I'm really pessimistic as at now. Sir Nixon Dugure says, are these talks really necessary? I think the best time to rate a new government is after 3 years. This shall be enough time to clean up all the previous atrocities, finish the previous viable incomplete projects, and even set the base for new projects. Brian Chemwa says, our hope as Kenyans, we expect the talks to foster better understanding and cooperation, leading to more informed and balanced policies to reduce political polarization for the benefit of the nation. Political supremacy will derail development. And Charlie Wardboy says President Ruto has made it very clear that Azimio will never be part of the KK government. Issues of national importance should be dealt with in the National Assembly and the Senate. Such talks will yield no fruit and will head nowhere because demands of the Azimio coalition are uncalled for. 30 seconds each, starting with the Honorable Kenan, because we're out of time.
Yeah, the issue of Sava, I think I see a lot of hypocrisy. The elections are conducted at the polling stations, counting done, results transmitted. That is where elections take place. Our friends disagreed with the results. The dispute was taken to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court made a final declaration. If there are issues for posterity, including reforms at the IEBC, I think the government has willingly accepted and said, look, they are willing to discuss reforms at the IEBC. And that has been one of the agenda.
Okay.
Except when IBC is fully constituted. If you have an issue with the IBC server, if you have an issue with the IBC, take it to them and say, and they'll be in a position actually to discharge their function as one of the constitutional commission. But this issue of whistleblower, I know how it was invented by a friend, my friend who is synonymous with the Sofria. It's a fallacy, it's falsehood.
Okay.
Meant to doing the poll, it doesn't exist at all. If it was there, the same should have been brought to the attention of the Supreme Court. It doesn't exist at all.
The beauty of having institutions that speak for the government and also the Kenyan people. Yes, Honorable Mbui, briefly.
Yeah, I wish to the team that is having these talks all success, because the country is, waiting with bated breath that they succeed, because if they succeed, then we move forward as a nation. But one of those things that is being contested here of the server is a basic, and I think we should, after every election, open the servers, not now, in the future also, so that we can lay bare the results of every election, and if in case there was any interference, it can also be dealt with.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Mutinda.
This is our country, this is our nation. We have to keep focusing for the benefit of all of us and not individuals. I agree, let us give the leaders that are in place for the talks, the 10 of them, to be able to give us an output. Let us be optimistic. Lastly, the issue of our manifesto as Kenya Kwanza is what has attracted the other leaders from the different political parties to be able to join, because their interest is much more on delivering and offering the best to the Kenyans. Bottom line, no handshake.
Okay. Yes, Honorable Pondo.
Nobody wants to greet the hand of the current regime. It is a regime we want to bury as soon as possible, because it is not serving Kenyans. Kenya is a multi-party democratic state. As such, when you are elected within a party or political formation, you have to stick to the next election. We want among the talks to include the idea that those who defected, like my brother Kenan, should face by-election, and we see how strong they are. Lastly, if this current regime won, the server is a permanent technological record of results. Open it, and it is not for the regime or President Ruto to tell us the server will not be opened. This is with IEBC. Let IEBC open it, and then we are demanding it because we know what result is in it.
Your time is all appreciated, and many thanks. The Kenyan people look forward to service delivery from you, because they fund, and you members of parliament are one of the most paid lawmakers across the world. So
we are the least paid. Least in the world.
There
in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to pull out
bring a debate on it.
Okay, thank you. Next time we'll debate about that. Thanks so much. Honorable Peter Opondo Kaluma, Homa Bay Town lawmaker. Senator Mutinda nominated. Thanks for your time. Robert Mbui, the Kadhiani lawmaker. Your time is all appreciated. Adan Kenan, the lawmaker representing Elders constituency. Your time is all appreciated. And thanks to you too for waking up with us here on the broadcast. Your time is all appreciated. And thanks for the feedback. Up next is Safina Chenga, Oma QT, and CJ Atemo for the next segment. We'll see you tomorrow morning here on the broadcast. Good morning.